And good morning, Hoosier Nation. Welcome to the very first disappointing edition of Hoosier Morning After of the season of the DeVries area. This is Hoosier Morning After Minnesota. Last night, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to lose their first road game, their first Big Ten game, 73-64, taking the record to 7-1 on the year, 0-1 in the Big Ten. Reality check time for a new team and a new staff, still trying to get things put together. This was the first true road game, like I said, of the season for this team, and the offense didn't travel, and the mentality, the focus of this team didn't travel. There's a lot of people that will fight against the effort, and I don't know, I would argue the effort might have been there. Effort might have been a little bit higher, obviously, with Minnesota, and kudos to Minnesota, who was on their game. They were there to break down Indiana and keep Tucker DeVries and Lamar from shooting any threes. They were coming off a 3-game losing streak, coming home shorthanded, all of those stories. And leading up to this game, honestly, those were kind of things as I looked into Minnesota that had me a little bit worried going into this game, and rightfully so, as that shoe dropped on me in this. Again, did a great job taking away the 3 ball for Indiana, locking down our 2 leading scorers, and was truly a game of runs. And IU had lots of opportunities in this game to put it away. In the second half, there was a nice run by Indiana. When we went down, Lamar hit a 3, goes down on the other side, blocks the shot, and Tucker hits a 3 on the other side. That brought the game within 2, but Minnesota would wisely call a timeout and got refocused and got themselves settled and back in it, and Indiana failed to execute from there. Just a step back overall in this game, just not being able to get things going. And truly was kind of a repeat of what we've seen already from this team in some other games where they kind of play down to the level and the talent of their opponent. So a disappointing one, a one that's got Twitter fired up as usual, and some inner fandom arguing and stuff like that. And obviously you keep telling yourselves when you have games like this early and reality checks like this that you'd say it's just one game, it's the first game. And obviously there are those that will have their own agendas and want to pounce on any negatives that happen. But this is the ups and downs of basketball, and this is one of the reasons we love it. Thank you for being here with us. Here with me, always, Martha, the mop lady. Martha, give me your opening thoughts on this game.
Good morning, Chad. Obviously, a dud last night. One on paper that, and one I think as the season goes on, you're going to look back on and be like, that should have been a win. There's no reason that shouldn't have been a win. Minnesota's kind of reeling. I think they're 4-4 going into the game, down 2 starters. So from a metric standpoint, I think Indiana was double-digit road favorite. So really just a game that, and obviously the barn has been a place that historically has caused Indiana a lot of problems, but, going into this game with the momentum that Indiana had, they're ranked. And sure, that ranking had some question marks by it. And ever since the Marquette win, there's been, the offense has looked like it's stalled a little bit, and some of that's been the opponents we played. So, but again, going in last night, you're like, man, this is a good first game to get that first Big Ten win and get some momentum going into what's going to be a tough stretch with Louisville and Kentucky looming. So it was frustrating. I think, in my opinion, the game was kind of lost in the last 5 minutes of the first half. Indiana built a 27-19 lead, and it dwindled in the last 5 minutes of the first half to a tie game. It was clear that Minnesota was going to take away the 3-point game, and I thought IU was really, really slow to adjust to that. You saw them adjust to it in the second half and get downhill and get fouled, but then they struggled with their free throws, and they struggled from 3, and they let all the things that Indiana can't do. Can't struggle from 3, you can't struggle from the free throw line, and you can't give up a lot of offensive rebounds. And they did all 3, and that's going to lose you any basketball game you play on, especially a Big Ten road opponent. So really, really disappointing. Again, we know we're going to see the good, the bad, the ugly with this squad, but that's a game that Indiana should have won, one that they're going to want to have back, I think, as the season goes on, because from a metric standpoint, it reeks. So hopefully they've got they've got an opportunity to bounce back here, obviously with Louisville on Saturday. But yeah, just a disappointing effort last night.
Yeah, I share your distaste for the Barn as well. I cannot stand elevated courts. They scare me that a player's going to go flying off of them. Obviously, they practice that kind of situation, and players are aware of that. But it makes the bench feel disjointed and everything from it, and it's just so weird, and I don't like it. I don't like elevated courts. But you kind of started to shift, and I do want to talk about IU's offense. Obviously, they did game plan well, and they played Indiana the way you're supposed to, and put on tape for Indiana's opponents how you should play Indiana, and that's take away Lamar, take away the 3-point, and make them go downhill. And I think Indiana, like you said, made some adjustments. And I think the coaching staff, there's going to be a big narrative of the coaching staff didn't do anything or didn't try anything. And you saw adjustments. You saw Indiana go with a few back screens, some cuts and stuff like that in the second half to try to get some open threes. And there were some decent 3 looks. Some were forced that just didn't go down. But I think there was still, I don't know if that's an air gap between coaching staff, what they laid out, and the team just not executing it well in this one. That, again, that lack of that last hitch of focus that wasn't in this game. But they just looked uncomfortable on the offensive end. And it kind of looked like almost like a hot potato game where anytime a player on Indiana had the ball in his hands, he was quick to want to get rid of the ball. I don't want this, give it to you. And it wasn't until Indiana realized that we needed to kind of get downhill that it was almost too late, and then not too many players were getting downhill. You had Lamar, who tried to get downhill a couple times in the second half. He gets blocked twice, kind of ill-advised. Third time, at least, was not the charm. He wisely shot faked and went up and made that third one. But I really think it was Connerway who was the only kind of threat of getting downhill for Indiana, and that's a concern too. I think we need to find other guys that can be that threat, because when they take away the 3, another way you open it up, if the screens and the plays that are called aren't working, is you get downhill. You get north-south, you collapse the defense, and you're able to kick it out. And I don't think Indiana was able to find that. Your kind of overall thoughts on the miss and where Indiana was missing on offense in this game?
Well, I think this game really highlighted the fact, and you mentioned giving opponents kind of a blueprint. Indiana, I think, is when you look at the makeup of this roster, and we've talked about it a little bit, they can get away with some things because of their shooting. But when their shooting goes south, they don't have, and Sam Alexis and Reed Bailey, especially Sam Alexis, and some could argue that he maybe should start, but they don't really have that true big, that true dominant big that they can go to and get a quick bucket at the rim. You could argue too that they don't really even have that go-to player on the wing. I mean, Reed Bailey is a solid player, but I don't know if he's that guy that you can trust right now to go down low, get a bucket when things aren't going well at the perimeter. And at times I think he is, but we only got to combine 16 points out of those 2 guys, and I'm maybe getting ahead of myself and talking about specifics. But when an opponent focuses on the 3 and takes it away like that, you've got to focus more on dribble drives, on cuts to the basket, on getting baskets at the rim. And when you look at IU's roster, that's really where I think the question mark lies, is who's going to be that guy. And Connerway did a good job of getting downhill at times. Wilkerson did. DeVries looked pretty one-dimensional last night. So I just think, and you got to put a little trust in coach here to maybe adjust and adapt and get the most out of these guys. But going into the season, if there's one spot that this roster lacks, or one question mark that this roster had, it was there. And I think it kind of showed last night with what Minnesota took away from us. I don't think we're going to shoot as bad as we did last night every single game. So I think it's kind of highlighted last night. But man, we needed one more dog last night, and I don't think we had it on our roster.
Yeah. I think defensively, Indiana as well felt a little step slower in this game. Minnesota, well coached and run offense, similar to what Indiana likes to do with those back cuts. And IU had some trouble with them. And there were multiple moments as well where I think one of your leaders had a really bad defensive game. Tucker DeVries. There were many moments in this game where he was going under screens against his guy, who was a 3-point shooter, and just like Tucker is out there, was going to look to shoot a three before he was going to drive anything. Yet Tucker's going around screens instead of fighting through him and staying glued to him. And then there were also some times where his player got some wide open threes because he just came over and was helping too much for no reason, no apparent reason. And I will say on one end, at least to take a positive away on the defensive side, is that we've seen earlier, and we saw a little bit more of it today or in last night's game, what Indiana's going to do when they are playing these bigs. And that was, they brought in a double down. A lot of players were coming in and doubling once their big grabbed the ball. And I thought it was fairly successful in this game. There wasn't really a moment where the big was able to pass out to an open guy and get a wide open three. I think a good double on a big is when you disrupt him, stop him from taking a shot, from going up easy against maybe your smaller big that's out there, and make him pass out. And if you can then get him to pass out and recover, then that's a successful double on a big. And I think Indiana did a good job of those. At least I'll give them kudos in that. It didn't lead to any really turnovers, which is the major success you want to do. You want to really get them flustered and cause them to turn it over. But at least it did its job as what you want from a double. So I look at that as a positive going into this game. What are your thoughts on Indiana's defense? Oh, didn't I get you muted? You're muted there, Martha.
Sorry, my bad. First time user, long time listener. I thought the defense, it needed to be, but we just looked a step slow. It's like, Thanksgiving hit us hard. And I'm going to keep mentioning because I thought it was just kind of a poor effort from Tucker DeVries last night. He looked really slow defensively, late to react. I think they're going to watch this film and want to throw it out of the window pretty quickly. I went back and watched a little bit, and I was getting frustrated just watching it. We just looked really, really slow to react. And I thought defensively, and that includes like being in position to get rebounds, to get offensive rebounds. They had twice as many offensive rebounds as we did, and 10 more defensive rebounds than us. And that's just Indiana's not going to win playing that kind of basketball, right? If that sort of stuff happens, it's just and credit to Minnesota. I think you mentioned it, right? I think they ran a lot of good sets offensively. While they might not have many dogs, they looked really, really good running their stuff. I don't know much about their coach. I know he had a lot of success at Colorado State, Minnesota guy, but Robbie Hummel and the other guy were certainly talking him up and mentioning how good of a coach he was, and it looked that way. It looked, even though Minnesota they are what they are, they were 4-4. Lost some rough opponents. They came in and did a good job, did what they needed to do, and Indiana just looked really, really slow to react.
Yeah, I think the moving into talking about some players in this game, I think the best player we had in the game this time was definitely Tatum Connerway. He was IU's leading scorer at 18 points. He was 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the line, with 2 assists and 3 turnovers. Turnovers a little high on his side, obviously, and not as many assists. But like we talked about earlier, when the offense wasn't clicking, he was the only one that was really able to get downhill for Indiana. And when you can't make it from the 3-point line, you need that guy that gets downhill, and he was able to do that for Indiana. And I don't know why. Obviously, he finished with 4 fouls. I've got to look back to see when exactly he got into foul trouble, but it's a crime to see what Indiana needed in that second half, and to see he only got 23 minutes now. Looking forward, that he needed to have every minute and as close to 40 minutes in this game as he possibly could, because he is what we needed in this. What were your thoughts on Tatum's game?
I really couldn't agree more with you. It's a surprise that, and obviously I think the foul trouble did have something to do with it, but he's a guy that you look at Enright, Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, they were all on the court for 35 minutes plus. And when you add up their shooting in the game, it kind of is what it is. But Connerway was I think provided us the most offensively. He got us into some movement, some motion. He got downhill. He was drawing fouls. I thought he was the best player on the court last night. And to your point, when you look at that, when you really consider he was only on the court for half the game, that's kind of a question mark. What's the why behind that? So I was impressed with him. I continue to be impressed with him. I think, the one thing, and I think you mentioned it, is and he only had 3 turnovers last night, but when you go back to Kansas State, I think he had 6 or 8 turnovers. So if he can continue to try to limit those, he's got a chance to do, I think, some special things, and really been a real bright spot for us this year. When there's been some games where DeVries and Wilkerson have struggled, like last night, and he's really stepped up. And Kansas State's a game that comes to mind, and last night where he's really been the best player on the court.
Yeah. Looking around to other guys, obviously this was the game where we want to talk about Indiana's bigs. And you mentioned before that Reed Bailey kind of struggled to kind of activate and find his thing. And there was those moments where I forget the name of the guy on Minnesota's, but Minnesota had to go kind of deeper in their bench and brought that really thick guy off the bench to play the 5 for them. And that was that moment where I was like, all right, here we go. Here's Reed Bailey taking a guy that's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit slower, take him off the dribble and get him handsy and get to the stripe. And I didn't see that happen. I was kind of shocked by that because I feel like that has to be a weapon that Indiana can do. When you have Reed Bailey that we have seen take the ball up the court, initiate the offense in times on other games, do that. Continue to do that. Make his man have to come out and meet him. If he doesn't, take a 3. If not, take him off the dribble, get him handsy, get to the line. Because Reed's been fairly successful in many games from the free throw line. He was 4 for 6 in this one. So turn that maybe negative that you have into a positive, and then also flipping and kind of joining the two together in this discussion. I think Sam Alexis had a fairly good game, and he just finished, let me see, how many minutes did he have? He had just 19 minutes. And you had mentioned earlier about Indiana needing that big down below that can just kind of get you a basket. And I think there was at least one moment where he got the ball in the block and did a great job and scored on Minnesota's big. And then we never went to that again. We went away from him. He didn't play as many minutes. So that was puzzling a little bit to me as well, that there was some success possibly to glean there. And if you find a rhythm and you constantly put it down there, either they're going to sub in their better big to stop Sam Alexis, or they're going to send guys to help, and then you can pass out of that and rotate around. So good job overall defensively, I will say, from the bigs. Like, we handled that situation, but I think a lack of taking advantage of possible advantages we had on the offensive side. Your thoughts on Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis in this game?
Yeah, I think you make some great points. I think Reed Bailey, his greatest strength can at times in Big Ten, especially once the conference season starts, his greatest strengths can maybe turn into a big weakness. Especially, you mentioned every Big Ten team has that Sasquatch big guy that they can throw out there to take up space, it seemed. I mean, it's just Big Ten basketball. I mean, there was a point there in the first half where, it's 25-20. It's like, here we go with the Big Ten season. It's just, at times it looks like the ugliest basketball because there's a whistle every time down the court. There's big guys that can't score. And you know what I mean? It's just slow down, roughneck. It's old school Big Ten basketball. And at times it's painful to watch, but that's the Big Ten. The Big Ten's going to have those big bruisers. They're going to have big bodies that teams can throw out. I mean, just wait till we see Michigan, Purdue. I mean, and they're skilled big guys. They're big guys that can do more than just take up space and rebound. They're guys that are offensive threats. So I think it's a concern, especially. I'll go back to like 3 things that can't happen that in Indiana come out with a win, right? It's lack of 3-point shooting, losing the rebounding game, and struggling at the free throw line. if Indiana can't check at least two of those three boxes, I don't think they have much of a chance to win. And that's what you saw last night. And they from a big guy standpoint, to your point, for them to be effective, got to take advantage of Reed Bailey's speed, his quickness, his ability to get to the rim. At times, he can just. I get a sense that maybe he doesn't have the best hands in the world. He'll lose a lot of balls at contact, and you saw Coach get on his butt. I think it was at halftime of the Kansas State game, right before, and he had a much better second half. And that's the Reed Bailey we need. Especially when each big guy's only getting 20 minutes, and so we've got to figure some things out there, and hopefully we use this game as a way to fix some things. But yeah, I think it's a concern right now for IU, especially when those other things that I mentioned aren't going right.
Yep. Trent Sicily, I think in this game, showed his freshman card. This was the first game we really kind of saw him rear that freshman mentality and everything like that. Struggled a little bit, had some fouling issues on those when he first got in there. I thought that second foul called on him was kind of was a little bit questionable. I think he was pretty good, and that was pretty exaggerated by them. But there have been other games this year where we've kind of looked to him, and he's been one that's kind of stepped up. Once we've had Trent struggling or Lamar play, other teams have kind of forgotten about Trent or just kind of used Trent's player to kind of focus more on those guys. And he just struggled to kind of get that going overall, and then just kind of glazing over some other players, and we'll get on to kind of stats from there. We saw Alexis. I'm gonna have to figure out how to say that exactly, but he went in for the first time, only got 3 minutes, kind of looked a little disjointed and everything, and a disservice to him to get in a game like this, because he needs to kind of get in there and get his feet wet and find the rhythm of this team when this team is playing a better rhythm, I should say. It's hard to get in there when a team's struggling and find chemistry when the chemistry just isn't there in general for you to slide into. I think Nick Dorn struggled again to find his footing. He only had 12 minutes, finished with the worst plus minus on the team, took 1-3 and missed that. Connor Enright, I will say, had another kind of hustle Connor Enright type of game, had the highest assists on the team at 7 with just 2 turnovers, the third highest minutes of the team, and the only player as well on the team to be up in the plus side, or the highest, I should say, at +7. The only one close to that was Tucker DeVries with +2. Everyone else was in the negative. Reed Bailey also in the positive. But any other kind of players that we haven't talked about that you want to glaze on there?
Well, you just hit on, you went through our 4 bench guys, and this, I think, by far was our worst bench performance of the season. And you can start with Trent Sicily, and I had that same thought. Kind of that welcome to the Big Ten moment where I think there was a stretch in the first half where I don't know if he had a turnover, but he certainly lost his defender and had a personal foul. It's like, whoa, there's a freshman stretch from Trent Sicily. He kind of the theme of the whole team. He looked a step slow and just maybe a little deer in headlights ish last night with his first Big Ten action. And I think a kid that's been averaging double figures for us, 11, 12, 13 points, and only came out with 3 points, only 3 shot attempts. So again, just an odd performance from the team across the board, but specifically the bench. Nick Dorn still trying to. I thought we took a step in the right direction against was it Bethune Cookman or whoever we played this last home game. Finally scored in double figures, and a guy that we know has got some offensive prowess to him last night, but really gave us nothing last night outside of 3 fouls and a couple rebounds. So he's kind of a milk carton last night. So got to have more from the bench, man. It's you start digging into the box score and just. The bench performance was lacking. It kind of looks like from the years past style of box score. So again, this is going to be one to flush, I think, pretty quickly. And the beauty of this game is we're going to have a quick chance to respond here moving forward. But yeah, no real highlights from that bench for sure, outside of maybe Alexis, having a high, he was 5 for 7 from the field. He just, again, 19 minutes, 20 minutes for Reed Bailey. We've got to figure out a way to get a big on the floor for a little more than that.
Yeah. This was definitely a game fans want to flush, but I think the team needs to sit on that and watch that tape over and over again. Lots of stuff for them to learn. Moving on to stats, good transition into that as well. You can really see when you look through the box score and the stats in this game where a lot of that lack of focus kind of showed up for Indiana. Obviously, biggest negative on it is the rebounding thing, 25 rebounds to 40. Just another game where Indiana just didn't attack the glass. Obviously, there were some that bounced pretty big and wide, and those I don't like to count negatively towards Indiana, because when you're missing those threes, you're going to get some clangers that really fire off that rim and go to who knows who, especially when you don't have the big guy to really jump up there and get that. I think another really one that shows that as well is Indiana was 8 for 16 on layups. I think that really kind of points to the focus as well for Indiana. Looking into at least some positives maybe in it, I will say 7 turnovers to Minnesota's 16. And IU scored 22 points off of those to Minnesota's only 5 points off of turnovers, but also equally, you can maybe twist that to a negative, because with all those turnovers from your opponent and you still couldn't take advantage of it at least a little bit more or turn things around. So there's a situation there. A negative one as well, 7 blocks from Minnesota to Indiana's 2. Again, that goes hand in hand with those layups there. Obviously, guys going in that did get to the rim and stuff, not doing wisely, going up against big guys that rotated over. And then you just kind of look at the shooting. And that was obviously a situation that was big for Indiana. 40% on the game, 30% from 3. And one of the worst ones, I think, was the free throw shooting at 60%, and it was 50% in the second half. So that was a lack, especially in the start of I think it was the middle 8, you will say, in a lot of these games, where football does great in the middle 8. This team really struggled in the middle 8 on this one. You had that foul issues where we gave up the big lead and tied the game going into half. And then you started the second half and IU got to the line about 10 times or so and only made 3 or 4 of those. So there's kind of a window there that really kind of tells you the story of the game, and IU not getting into that. Any stats or anything that you see in this game that you want to speak on?
Well, some of these will be repeat, but I'm going to continue to go back to the 3 that, like, if Indiana wants to win, they've got to carry these statistics. And mentioned the 29.6% from 3, 8 for 27. That's red flag number 1, and then 12 for 20, 60% from the free throw line, and then allowing 14 second chance points. That's a recipe to get beat by anybody, especially with the way that Indiana's roster is built. So mentioned already and talked a little bit about just I didn't go back and look at like what we're averaging, from a points perspective from the bench, but what we got last night was, I think, 13 points of bench scoring, which is well below this team's average. We've got to have, especially when you've got guys like Connor Enright and you never know what you're going to get from Reed Bailey. You've got to have some bench production to kind of counter what those guys bring defensively. And we just didn't have it last night. And so, yeah, again, I just go back to the recipe for, and that's the challenge that this team's going to have, right? Is now the blueprint's out there. I think it probably has been out there, but now it's on film for other coaches to see and other programs to see. So now it's going to be up to the team, the coaches, to figure out a way to combat that. And the easy fix is just shoot better, right? But that's easier said than done. All right, what are we going to do when a team takes away the 3-point shot? How are we going to adjust and adapt quickly? What are we going to do to take away the second chance points? Right? It's being able to find some fixes to those questions and put yourself in a much better position to win, because the shots aren't always going to fall. We know that. We've seen that. So you've got to have a way to combat that, and a way to certainly not combat that is to lose in those other two areas, and that's really what stuck out to me last night.
Yeah. Some final stats I just wanted to go over too is that one that we've talked about and loved on this show so far this year was the assist to made field goals, and that again looks high in this game, but there's a little asterisk by that. So Indiana had 14 assists on this game on 22 made baskets. Now the issue is they had 33 missed baskets, and I think a lot of those missed baskets were in moments where Indiana wasn't making assists. Indiana wasn't making the passes. Guys weren't moving off the ball, and therefore we were playing some hero ball and missed some shots. Some of those blocks, those missed layups, that kind of situation is where it rears that ugly head. But an interesting thing to obviously look at too, while you would think looking at the game that Indiana didn't take a lot of threes. We took 27 threes in this game. So they took a lot. They just weren't going in. And I think that comes along those same lines. Like we said, this team's going to win and die by the three. And you put in three more of those. Again, Indiana shooting 29.6. You get a little bit higher, closer into the 30s, what they've been averaging. And it's a very different game. So that's the wild thing with this team and the ups and downs that we are going to have to deal with watching them and get used to seeing and all that. So here we go. Buckle up, enjoy this ride as we come along. I will shift, though, and kick it back to you, Martha, to talk about our unofficial sponsor of this show. A great place, a great thing to do with tickets. If you are one of those people grumping on Twitter and don't want to watch this team, don't sell your tickets. Martha will tell you what you can do with those tickets.
First off, to your point with grumping on the team, we knew. I mean, we're in year one of and I think it always compounds when you go through, when we look at the last 2 to 3 seasons, right? I think this season and this team is a victim of having that on their shoulders a little bit when it shouldn't be that way, right? There's not been anything that we've been able to hang our hat on for the last couple of years. So, there's some built up frustration. I think in large, it's a fan base that thinks a move maybe should have been made a year quicker than it was. And I think there's just a lot of angst and built up anger, and it's tough, especially a game like I'm as guilty as the next person of just getting really, really frustrated at the moment and be like, here we go again, right? Looks like the same product we saw last year. And I think that's a bit unfair with the new staff, building a new roster, completely new roster. Didn't return a single point from last year's team. So there's going to be these moments as Coach DeVries builds his roster, right? And I think it's a little bit unfair to just start piling on this quickly. Twitter's built to be reactive, right? It's everybody's going to be reactive. It's not going to be any different. But I think to the point you just made about people, maybe not going and just giving up on the team. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because this team deserves our support. I'll get off my soapbox now. But if in the event you are considering getting rid of your tickets, the Hoosier Ticket Project, we had about 15 people at the women's game last night. And we've mentioned with the holiday break coming up, even though the men's schedule kind of stinks this year over the holiday break, there's just a couple weekend games on the front and back end of Christmas break. Those are great games to get deserving fans to Assembly Hall. Families are in town. Families are usually together during that stretch. So it's awesome to be able to send folks to games then. So if you're something you're interested in doing, making a donation, you can visit our website, HoosierTicketProject.org, right there on the screen. We'll walk you through the donation process, and we will make sure that your tickets find a very, very deserving home. We try to share as many photos as we can of our attendees at the game. So really, really cool thing. So yeah, if you've got tickets or just want to make a monetary donation, you can visit our website, hit the donate button, or if you know somebody that might be a good candidate to send to a game, there is a request tab on our website, same website as well. Thank you, Chadwick. Now you're on.
Thank you for that. Now it's my turn to kind of get a mute air going on there.
There you go.
Yeah, it's definitely, Yeah, I'm not going to say anything on it. You said enough on that. I'm not going to hark on that train anymore with the fandom and everything like that. But I will kick it back to you one last time. Give me your closing thoughts on this game.
All you can do is flush it. I always praise you because of the premise of this show of sleeping on it for a night, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, depending on how the game went. But basketball, and Coach DeVries said it, we weren't going to win them all. And it's sometimes tough to hear from a coach, right? Because, you don't want that mindset creeping into any of your players. But, a loss was inevitable, especially a loss with a brand new roster. I've heard different media outlets, different fans. Everybody has said there's going to be some highs with this team. There's going to be some lows with this team. It's just the way the roster is built. When it's a poor shooting night, you're going to have other things go right to win basketball games, and there's going to be nights where some of those things don't go right. We don't have that non-shooting dog that can get baskets and buckets at the rim on any given night on this roster. So we've got to be able to shoot, defend, and rebound, and we didn't do any of those 3 things well last night. I trust that the staff. We've got some tough opponents. Louisville's a tough opponent. They're coming off a loss to Arkansas last night. That's going to be a tough game. Their roster's built a little bit better than ours, but if we shoot like we can, you never know what's going to happen. So it's just a roster that when things go right, they can beat anybody. When things go wrong, they can get beat by anybody, and that's what we saw last night. So I think just continuing to stick behind this team, opportunities right around the corner. I think we go Louisville, Penn State, Kentucky. If we can find a way to take 2 of those 3, or in best case scenario, win all 3, I think we're all happy and smiling. So just keep plugging away. Trust Coach DeVries, and excited for the next opportunity on Saturday. Also, go IU football.
Yep. Big kind of weekend and time from this point through Saturday going on for Indiana athletics overall. You've got volleyball. We have to shout out who made the tournament and are hosting a game tonight at home. Their tip should be or hit. First serve, I don't know, what do they say in volleyball? Ball should drop at about 5:30. They say, check local listings. Not sure what you call that, but anyways, should be a good game for them. Should be a fun one. If you're in the Indiana or Bloomington area and can get out to that game to cheer them on, please do. I've been to a game there. It's a fantastic venue to see them and everything. And then, like Martha teased there, we have a big Saturday, the biggest probably Saturday in IU athletics that we've seen, with basketball kicking it off at 2 p.m. It's on CBS. For those of you that can't make it to Indy against Louisville, Louisville ranked 6, but may drop a little bit with their loss. Indiana may drop a little bit as well, but that's going to be a big response game. See how Indiana responds, how we come out after this loss, a little bit closer to home. Going to be a really good energy, a wonderful situation. And then obviously football kicking off that evening. So I'm so excited. I've told my family, don't expect to see me at all on Saturday. I will be in the basement glued to the TV watching these wonderful sporting events. So great time to be a Hoosier. Like Martha said, this game is one that you want to flush as a fan, that the coaching staff is going to use for teaching moments, and we'll see how those teaching moments come out. But again, as I will echo what I said earlier on in the show, this was truly the definition of a trap game. This was games that usually happen later on this season, but this was that kind of thing. And at least it happened now where IU can make adjustments and everything. It's not going to be a great resume builder. We are going to have to overcome this. You just kind of hope maybe Minnesota has found something and becomes a little bit better of a team. Make this loss a little less bad than it is, but it is what it is. We move on. We flush it. We have a wonderful weekend and time to be an IU sports fan. So I can't wait for all of that going on. But for now, that'll be it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you for being here with us. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. You can follow Martha as well at the Mop Lady. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. If you're listening on any of the podcast streams as well, leave a comment, a like, any of those things that it does. I appreciate that greatly. We'll be back again on a wonderful Sunday, either very happy very defeated, or we'll see what kind of mentality, what kind of shape we're in. I'm hoping for a good one on Sunday morning to talk about the Louisville game and possibly a Big Ten football championship team. Until then, guys, go out there, have a wonderful day, and let's go Hoosiers.